Hello and welcome to your messages for the week. Today is Sunday, the 28th of May, 2023. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Deborah Jane Sutton, and you can find out more about me and the things that I do at my website, deborahjanesutton.com, and from Facebook, Deborah Jane Sutton, and from this YouTube channel. So have a good browse around, lots of different things on here. So, interesting week. As I'm shuffling the cards. So last week I decided to practice what I preach. And, the message has been coming up a lot, hasn't it, lately, about investing your time, money, energy in your own frequency, in raising your own frequency, in your own well-being. And so I decided it was time to do that. So I am freshly back from a beautiful yoga and raw food retreat down in the southern Spain. Just got back, and so I'm newly inspired. And I was practicing what I preach. And a couple of things came up for me. I think it's really true that we have to literally, even though I have a life that I don't need a holiday from, that's become very apparent recently, but still there are benefits to just leaving your living area, the people that you normally live with, however gorgeous they are, the house that you normally live in, however gorgeous it is, just to be somewhere where no one knows you, and you've not been, in that environment before. And it's just you, and it really gives you a chance to just to see what's going on within you. I think it gives you the opportunity for stuff to come up because we have to remember the universe is always conspiring for our benefit. In fact, we are the universe. We know that, don't we? We're the whole universe in one human being. Remember the Rumi quote, you're not just a drop in the ocean. You're the whole ocean in one drop. So you're not just a human being in the universe. You're the whole universe in one human being. And you are the creator of your own reality. So we're all creating our own reality, and we do it through our frequency. And our higher self knows exactly what we need. And what we need sometimes isn't what we want. And what we need sometimes, like in my case this last week, was to process some fear. I had fear coming up. And fear to me is just the opposite of love. So when there's fear coming up, we want to process it because once you've processed it, you replace that space in your energy body, the space in your cells, you replace it with love and serenity and joy and all these beautiful things. Fear is just the opposite of love, but how it manifests in your life will be different for everyone. So some people will have irrational fears about certain things, other people will have fear of, I don't know, different situations. But it's all just fear. It's all just part of who you're not. Okay. So because we are divine love and light, right? And sometimes it takes moving away from our environment in order to bring that up. And our higher self knows what's right for us. And our higher self talks to us through our inspiration. So we don't even have to think, but we do have to follow our inspiration. And so when I saw this retreat, I was like, I'm going there, whatever. And it was great. And a number of things came up for me, for me to process. And the same was happening for the people around me. And it was so beautiful because the universe, or me, or my higher self, or however you want to perceive it, made sure that I had the most gorgeous, loving people around me at all times. So I was able to process stuff and move on and replace it with love. It was like fear out, love in. That's exactly what it felt like. Fear was coming up, and then love was going in its place. And I just feel lifted, absolutely lifted. And the sense of serenity driving home was just amazing. So yeah, but it's this embodying this information, this knowledge that we do need to invest in ourselves. It's not just, it is self-love, but it's sometimes not pretty, when you're processing fear. or when you're letting that vulnerability. You know, there was you have to be open to being vulnerable. I'm quite used to it, but I think there were some people there that weren't so used to facing that vulnerability. Um, but we need to face that vulnerability. We need to like be willing to explore what's really going on. And one of the biggest things that came to me was we need to be willing to change our minds about things. We need to be willing to stop being so rigid in our thinking, because we know this, don't we, from my video on understanding thoughts, your thoughts and the thoughts of others. I'll put a link in the description and the video in the end screen to that one. Because if we're not changing our beliefs and changing our thoughts about things, then we're not evolving, are we? We're not going up that chart, the chart of consciousness, which I talk about a lot. um, if we want to expand into higher levels of consciousness, our perception of things, our view of things, our view of life, you know, our view of how things work, the view of what's right and wrong for us personally. I mean, I know that we could say there is no right and wrong, but for us personally, if our soul is trying to guide us, then there is some kind of right and wrong, isn't there? There's a direction that your soul wants you to go in and a direction that your soul doesn't want you to go in. And facing vulnerability is really important to do that. So I think I'm okay with that. I just, you know, going to have a little vulnerable moment and have a little cry in various places. And as I said, I had fantastic support around me. But yeah, it's amazing, and it's just made me realize even more how important it is for us to spend our time, money, and energy on ourselves and our well-being, because it will shift you into a higher level of consciousness, and that in itself will shift you into a higher level of abundance of joy, health, peace, happiness, and there is always financial security. When you reach those levels of abundance, of course, financial security is there. It may not come in the form of financial wealth, as in loads of money in your bank account, but it will come from that feeling of having everything you need, absolutely everything you need, which of course reminds me of that beautiful affirmation from Sara Landon and the council. I'll put a link in the description to her teachings as well. Galore, galore, I have everything I need and more. Galore, galore, I have everything I need and more. I'm going to invite you to join me on that one because I like to say it 3 times, but close your eyes and really feel into the energy of the words, because it's the energy of these words that's going to expand into the cells of your body and make you feel abundant. When you feel abundant on the inside, that is what's going to create the abundance on the outside. So you're ready, just close your eyes. Galore, galore, I have everything I need and more. How does that feel? If you really tune into it, you can feel yourself expanding, right? We know that the outside is a reflection of the frequency you are on the inside. So if you can hit that high frequency of abundance, of having everything you need, of feeling abundant, then you will create that outside of you. So yeah, it's amazing how these things work, and also this whole idea of everybody being a reflection of a part of us. So everybody outside of us is a reflection of a part of us. So this came to me this week as well. I think I've mentioned this before actually, but when I got really angry with somebody a few months ago, I sat back afterwards when I reflected. Obviously, I went into judgment of myself and needing to forgive myself and all of that. The person forgave me, but you know, needing to forgive myself. But then I just went into a trigger response, which is I kind of wrote down everything that I was saying to the person, everything that had made me angry, This is like the Byron Katie work. I'll put a link in the description to her work as well, because it's like the judge your neighbor. So I had written down everything that I was angry with this person about, and I wrote it all down, and then I read it back to myself, from my higher self to my human, and it was spot on. So everything that I had been shouting at this other person about was actually what my higher self was wanting to shout to me, to my human. And when I realized that, obviously there was a big part of me that thought, could I not have had that realization before I shouted at the person? It would have been much more pleasant. But what did they say? You know, sometimes we learn our lessons through these unpleasant ways. And that's why acceptance, forgiveness, understanding, and all of these things are so important. That's massive lessons for us to take on board. But I mean, everything's fine now. But I took a lesson from that, that it was actually, it makes sense, doesn't it? Because if everybody outside of us is a reflection of a part of us, when we get angry or peed off or resentful or jealous or whatever, you know, fearful, whatever negative emotions we want to put on it, when we feel like that towards somebody else, it's our higher self telling us something about ourselves. It's us talking to us. They are just the mirror. And the mirror can be one of those, you know how you can get those makeup mirrors that exaggerate? They're like bigger, a magnifying mirror. Sometimes what's on the outside of us can be a magnifying mirror. So in my case, you know, my situation wasn't quite the same as what I was shouting at, but the principle behind it, the energy behind it, but they operate on different scales. I'll put a link in the description and the video in the end screen to my video on understanding triggers, because it's really important that we understand this before we go around shouting at people. It'd be really good if we could clock this, have a little shout to ourselves. What do you want to say to that person? Write it all down. Right, this is the Byron Katie. Write it all down and then read it back. Get the lesson before you shouted at the person. Not just shouted, but before you've responded with or reacted, overreacted, maybe in some cases, and before you've blamed the other person. Remember, when you blame another person, you've got three fingers pointing back at you. So it's always about you. It's always about you. Everything is always about you. And you are the creator, and you are creating your own reality. And you're doing it through the frequency that you are. So when you have fear coming up, like in my case, I had fear coming up, that's going to be reflected back to me in a fearful situation. So, which for me was the mountain drive going to the retreat. It was like really high up, really narrow. It wasn't always a crash barrier, really steep drop. I mean, I just filled with fear. But that it wasn't so much about the mountain road. It was about the fact that the fear was coming up, and the fear wanted to be processed. And so the fear within me created the fear outside of me, if you see what I mean. It created the situation on the roads, just to raise my awareness to the fear. So our journey is about releasing fear. If, you know, again, we could say, if we could release that fear, if we know that we have fear, we want to use the emotion code or the EFT tapping or hypnosis, there's many ways that we can release fear, of course. It would be lovely to be able to release it before it manifests in something outside of us. Do you see what I'm saying? But there's a real message here about understanding that your outside world is a reflection of the inside. So that's why it's really important that when you release the fear, you fill it with love and gratitude and serenity, because when you have more love, gratitude, and serenity within the cells of your body, that is what's going to get mirrored back to you. And that's when you know you've made progress on your journey, because you're just going to meet more loving people and have more peaceful situations, more joyful situations and experiences. and life gets better and better and better. And it's because of the love, the peace, the joy that is coming into the cells of your body when you release the other, negative emotions. So, yeah, practice what you preach. That's another one, of course. If you remember that everybody outside of you is a part of you, when you find yourself preaching to somebody, and I don't mean that you're going around preaching and telling people what to do. I don't mean that in a kind of a negative, judgmental way. It's just a phrase, isn't it? Practice what you preach. But a lot of people I know watching these videos will be counselors and coaches and holistic therapists, and in a place whereby we are giving advice to other people, mentoring other people, or giving advice to other people. So when we give advice to other people, we need to remember that they are holding a mirror up. So any advice that we give needs to be heeded. I mean, with my cards, I know that anyway. I say that all the time, don't I? The cards, the messages for the cards are always for me. And then I share them with you. Talking of cards, let's get on, shall we? And read the card. I've been shuffling now. Two cards. Oh, there is another one that's come out. I was going to say two cards had already come out, and no others seem to come out. We've got three now, and three does seem to be the magic number, doesn't it? Let's just see. Is that it, or do we have any more for this week? No, I think it's three. We've got three. Let's dive in and see what they are. Here we go. Knight. Oh, quickly, quickly, quickly. Things can manifest as quickly as you want them to. It depends whether you're ready or not. Somebody actually asked me on the retreat how long affirmations take. So if you're new to affirmations, just to let you know that chapter 1, book 1 is all about affirmations, how to use them and how to get them to work for you. I'll put a link in the description because that first book is free to download from my website at deborahjamesarmsworth.com. But because swords are mental processes, so that will include words and thoughts and beliefs. And if you want to install the positive ones really quickly, it depends obviously on the person, because it's like saying how long is a piece of string. When I started with affirmations, I was saying them while swimming up and down in the pool, and I was saying them, before I went to bed, when I woke up in the morning, when I was cleaning my teeth, and I would try and memorize them. And whenever I had, a spare 5 minutes, I would just repeat like these 8 affirmations. But in the beginning, I wasn't really taking it very seriously. I had just read the book, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And she talks about affirmations a lot. So I didn't really have deep belief in them. I was just doing it. I'm not quite sure why. And it took a few months. But I remember when all 8, I just reflected and realized that all 8 affirmations had come true for me. And I just remember having a real aha moment, like, oh my God, but that had taken months. But then I didn't have the belief behind it. I didn't have that power behind it. But then when I realized, oh my goodness, they've come true, I then picked another 8, and it felt like I was picking another 8 dreams to come true. And so I picked another 8 affirmations. And they too came true after a while. And while on the retreat, funny enough, one of my aha moments was that I said an affirmation to myself. And before I'd even got the affirmation out of my mouth, tears came up, something came up to process. And I realized that I was aligning with the frequency of that affirmation. And I was like, oh my God, it took me no time at all from saying the affirmation to actually processing what was stopping me from believing that affirmation, and what was therefore raising my frequency in alignment with the frequency of that affirmation. And it all just happens spontaneously like that. So what I'm saying with this card is how quickly we move on this evolution journey, ascension journey, what do you want to call it, spiritual journey, life's journey, healing journey, however you want to view it. But how fast we can manifest the changes and the growth and the healing is up to us. It's up to us, because look how fast he's going. Horses are positive movement forward, and this is the horse that's going the quickest. But he is wind, of course, because the swords are the air element. And he's very protected. I think of the knights as all being very protective. Um, and of course, it refers to inspiration as well. So this is going back to what I was saying about when your soul wants you to do something, it will communicate with you through inspiration. You'll be inspired to do a course, have a healing session, study something, go away on a holiday somewhere. You'll just be inspired. It will just be something that makes you want to do it. And so he's saying, do it. If you have an inspiration like that, follow it, especially now in 2023. Especially now, follow that inspiration because understand that why has that inspiration come to you? I mean, I see advertised on Facebook retreats all the time, and they don't inspire me like the one that I've just been on. It just went, oh, something. I just knew I had to go. And don't think, oh, it's a lot of money, or how am I going to get there? I need to take time off work. I need to do this. What am I got? Lots of limiting beliefs. You can stop yourself. We can talk ourselves out of anything. But when you understand that the inspiration is coming to you for a reason, because your soul is trying to get you to do what's right for you, even if it, can be a little bit of a bumpy road, or in my case, a windy mountain road. So yeah, follow your inspiration. Definitely. Oh wow, definitely follow your inspiration. She's the most psychic card in the deck. This is the High Priestess. It's a major arcana card. She's the most psychic card in the deck. She's the most intuitive. She's the most intuitive card in the deck. Follow your inspiration because your inspiration is your intuition. It's your intuition talking to you, isn't it? She's the most powerful. So yeah, this is like, wow, this is like there is manifestation to be had. If there's something that needs healing within you, it could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be mental, it could be spiritual, but please remember that they are all connected. We are multidimensional beings. If you have a physical ailment, there will be also an emotional issue behind it, a mental issue behind it, and a spiritual issue. There will be a spiritual lesson for you to learn in the process of healing. And if you want to heal faster and you're focusing on the physical layer only, then I invite you to explore the trapped emotions and the beliefs that you're holding on to. Because very often we can heal ourselves physically when we focus on the emotions that are trapped in the cells of our body and the beliefs that we have around all sorts of things, especially the beliefs that we have around healing and around miracles, because we have to believe in miracles to achieve them, right? To welcome them in. Because our creations, we're creating in every now moment, and we create through our beliefs. So that's why they say you have to believe it to see it, right? You don't see it to believe it. You have to believe it to see it. And that's why if you believe in miracles, you'll see them because we are creating our reality through our beliefs. So choose beliefs that are going to serve you, beliefs that tell you that you can heal quickly, you can do the things that you want to do, your body can change, your life can change, the things that you want to create in life can be manifested quickly when you follow your inspiration and you understand that you're a multi-dimensional being and that we're looking for health and happiness and balance in the emotional energy body and the mental energy body as well as the spiritual. So, I mean, in yoga, we call these the koshas, but, in the dimensions, we've got the third dimension, the fourth dimension, which is where your emotions and your beliefs lie. So make sure that they're positive emotions and positive beliefs. And if they're not, they will be coming up to be processed. So process them, don't push them back down. And this is all part of the spiritual lessons. When we nurture the soul, then a lot of things will heal naturally. So when it comes to healing, I see it as kind of twofold. One is to obviously look after the physical body. So diet, exercise, fresh air, all these things, but also the emotional body. Make sure that you're not hanging on to resentment, bitterness, fear, grief, Okay, anxiety. Make sure that you have a chance to process them, talk about them. Talking about them just can help. That also happened for me on the retreat, just having some lovely conversations with people, and out of nowhere, stuff's coming up. They're holding space for me while I just process some emotions. Obviously, I did the same for them. So it was just a beautiful experience. Um, but when we understand that we can shift our beliefs as well, and then when we can consciously heal ourselves by focusing on releasing those trapped emotions and those limiting beliefs, beliefs that tell us that we can't do something. Or also, we can heal ourselves by just doing what our soul wants us to do. So if your soul is telling you to go and paint pictures and um, plant your own food, or to travel, or whatever your soul is wanting you to do through this inspiration, when we follow our hearts in that way, healing happens automatically en route. But when we do the two, when we consciously release the emotions that aren't serving us and the beliefs that aren't serving us, and we also focus on the joy that certain things bring us, and we bring more of that into our life, then that's how we're going to get the most healing, the quickest healing. Understanding it all. I mean, she's very knowledgeable. Look, she's reading the scriptures. The moon symbolizes subconscious fears in tarot, and she's got the moon tethered at her feet. So there is no fear. She has no fear. This is the abundance behind her, you can see. And the pillars represent strength and happiness, but they also can represent, because they're black and white, can represent the duality of the physical world. You know, the right and wrong and good and bad and all of these things. And she's risen above that. She's risen above the duality, and is going to. There's a lovely Rumi quote. There is a field beyond right and wrong. I'll meet you there. It's lovely, isn't it? There is a field beyond right and wrong. I'll meet you there. So that's kind of what she's saying. She's and oh, and also so's he, because look, he's got the black and white here, and he's risen above in level of consciousness. Oh my goodness me, two major arcanas. In I have the cards face down. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I have the cards face down, and I just turn them over as I go. So um, oh, this is lovely because she's studying. So she's assigned to say, study, understand who you really are, understand how we create our reality, you know, understand the quantum physics, I want to say. It doesn't have to be complicated. The quantum physics behind you and how you work, and the universe is governed by frequency, and understanding that. So these scriptures to me are not so biblical. They're more, I would say, Greg Braden, Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, um, Dolores Cannon. To me, they are the scriptures, understanding how life works. Or even she could be reading my books. And also, she's a message of, you know, the message of fear that I've already talked about, releasing fear, because every time you release fear, you take yourself closer to love, the love that you are, um, expressing your divinity. Your divinity is divine love, right? So yeah, she's talking on that level. What he's talking a bit more about is about bringing heaven to earth. So this is the Chariot. It's about moving on. This is about moving on levels of consciousness, because there is also a card in the deck about moving on physically, to calmer waters. And, you know, that's very much about leaving a job, or moving house or something like that. Whereas this one is, he's moving on. He's more powerful because he's a major arcana card. He's already achieved his goals, but he's this on his canopy. You can see the stars and stuff. So this symbolizes heaven. He's bringing heaven to earth, because what's happening is we're raising our level of consciousness. Okay, so ultimately we want to access Christ consciousness, levels of Christ consciousness, right? So, of course, Jesus was an example of somebody operating from that level of consciousness. That's why we call him Jesus Christ, right? That wasn't his surname, but he was Jesus who was operating from Christ levels of consciousness, Christ consciousness. But we want to bring that Christ consciousness, or that I call it heaven on earth, that divinity, that bliss, whatever you want to call it, we want to bring it into the cells of our body. Because when we bring it into the cells of our body, we create from that. So therefore, we create heaven, but in physical form. Because at the moment, when you think of heaven, you don't think of it as being in physical form. But that's what this great awakening is all about. It's about raising our level of consciousness, which we do by raising our frequency. If you don't know how to raise your frequency, please check out my first book, Heal Yourself to Happiness, which is free. I've already mentioned it. Link in the description, because it offers, it's a simple guide to raising your vibrations, basically. But when we raise our frequency, we expand into higher levels of consciousness, and then we can express our divinity, not just express our human desires and our human attributes or whatever, but to actually express our divinity through our human vessel. And that can sometimes be things that you're not used to, because we have been so programmed, we have been kept so dense, I want to say, energetically, but it's a good word, right? We've been kept so dense and in the dark about how life really can be. So it's about really bringing this heaven, the concept of heaven, the frequency, the level of consciousness of heaven, bring it into the cells of your body so that you can create from that frequency. And that's how we create heaven on earth, by us all doing that. Because at the moment, there are little pockets of people living in heaven on earth. I know a lot of people living in heaven on earth. And I also know a lot of people who aren't. So it is about raising your frequency and expanding your level of consciousness. So, and he's about moving on. So this is a really, really powerful week. The answers lie in your inspiration, and in your words. So practice what you preach, because when you tell somebody else to do something, or when you find yourself repeatedly telling other people what to do about certain things, just make a mental note. Is that relevant for me? And it may not be on the same level, but just listen to your own words. Does it fit somewhere, somehow? Because they are just a mirror for you. So practice what you preach is the first one, of course. The next one, of course, is following your inspiration. Following your inspiration, use affirmations as well to help you process stuff. And follow your inspiration, what's coming in, however, illogical it might seem, because there's method in the madness. Your higher self is guiding you. It's guiding you through your inspirations, through your thoughts, through your beliefs. That's what you're creating from. This is how we're going to raise our level of consciousness. And by all doing it, we're going to raise the level of consciousness of the collective. And we can all live in heaven on earth. How does that sound? Does that sound like something you'd like to do? So, yeah, following our inspiration, practicing what we preach, and creating heaven on earth together. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? I absolutely love it. Couldn't do it without you. Really, really couldn't. Coming to the end of May. If you haven't seen the messages for May, yes, check those out. I'll put a link in the description to those as well, because they were all about appreciating your multidimensional nature. So if you're very focused on the physical, it was about opening up to your non-physical, the parts of you that are non-physical, your higher self, for example. And if you are into your higher self and following your guidance, it was a reminder to still focus and don't neglect your physical body. Make sure your physical body is getting as much love and nourishment and nurturing as it needs, so that we can keep all our dimensional energy bodies in tip-top condition and balance and harmony, everything else. So check those out if you haven't already done so. Get in touch if you'd like a private reading, and comment, please, subscribe, like, and all those other YouTubey things. Lots of love to you all. Mwah, mwah, mwah. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.